Okay, so today I'm going to do a little bit of a demo session for the OpenProject software that we're using for the Next Steps project. And the recording will be shared with Next Steps contributors and other collab members who maybe wish to learn more about the software and would like to use it. The software is being provided by the Digital Circle, and the hosting is being funded through the Next Steps project funding. So without further ado, I'll try to show you and share my screen. I'm just going to move this here so you can see a little bit better. And okay. So first of all, you're going to have to log in. So let me sign out. When you first go to openproject.app.perma.earth, you're confronted with this very limited view of the project. So someone who doesn't have access can still have a look at the projects that are ongoing, unless that's marked as private. So you're going to have to sign in. So you're going to put in your username and password, which you would have received as a Next Steps contributor by private message, either from me or from another Digital Circle member. So this is me logged in. It will show me my little icon there with my initials in this case. And as an admin, I do have quite a lot of options, but I'll try to show you the ones that are relevant to just a regular user. So let's say I'm working on a specific project. I'm going to pick one as an example here, the Permaculture Convergence Aggregator. And there are several methods how to get to that project page. As you saw, I clicked on a link from the project list there on the main page, but I could also click it on the drop down here where it says projects and simply scrolling down and ticking the one that is relevant to me. And that takes me to the front page here. As a team member, I have the option to change the project status here. So this is one feature of it. I can also update the project description by double clicking here. Just typing stuff here, text, for example. And when I'm finished with it, I can just save it. As you can see, the editing here gives you quite a bit of options. So I can make a heading, I can make a table, I can make a tick list. And you can see here, there's quotes, there's code box, so you can strike through any. So these are like your basic text formatting type options. I can delete this, I don't want it. And so, for example, if I want to just have an overview of my objectives, which is what this project wanted to do here, I made this into a tick box and I can tick them away for the ones that are ready. Here's an example. Here I can see who else is in the project with me, who all the members are also project admins, and I can also add here a member if I want to, if I click member. And so these are the existing members and their current rate. And here you can also edit your own rate. And you can also check whether that user is still active or not, and if they're any part of a groups, but we're not using the groups function in this case. I can add, let's say, new members. So for example, I could add Natalia here, and I can here assign her a role. So let's say she's not going to be an admin, she could be a member. That's fine, and I just add her there. And that what will that do is that when she logs in, she will see that she's been added as a member. Her rate is 0. In this case, we would ask Natalia to put in her rate so that I will show you why that is important in a minute or so. And I can, as an admin, I can remove members as well. So as the project admin, I can remove any member that's no longer active. So that's removed. So that's for the members. If I go back to where I was, using the drop down this time. I can go on overview. And this takes me back on that first overview, right? I scroll down a little bit and this gives me a kind of work package view as to what's going on. It's sometimes important for some projects and not important for others. In this case, there aren't that many tasks. So it doesn't really tell me much about this, but I could in theory remove this widget if I didn't want it. So teams can customize their own view here. And what's most important for teams to keep track of their tasks, I would say, is the work packages view. Just gonna click on that. It takes a moment to load. Okay, so what's important is that we want to create tasks that are relevant to the objectives that we have. So in this case, we used our objectives as milestones, and we have marked them as such. And so if I click on the first milestone and I want to see more detail about this, then I can click on the ID, which is a link. And that will open and give me more information about that milestone in a minute when it loads. Good. So here's the option to add more description, who's assigned to this, if someone's accountable. Because this is a general milestone for the whole team, there was no need to assign it to anyone. But what we did want is that we wanted to create tasks that are related to this milestone. So where would I see this? I see this on the side here where you can see activities, files, relations. I click on relations and I can see that there's one task related to this. I can make this a little bit bigger. And if I wanted to see what's going on here, basically I would just click on the ID number again, and that opens on that specific task. As you can see, they're interrelated. So the task is linked to the milestone and the milestone links to the task. And in this case, I know that this task has been completed because we have received the necessary handover, and it's also linked here. So we know that this task is complete. There's a link to the documentation. It's relating to this task, and I can change the status from in progress to closed. Another thing you will notice here is that there's a spend time button. So there's two links here. One is on the 3-hour link. It says, and if I click on it, it will show me the time spent for this work package specifically. And the clock link, which is used for logging the time. So if I wanted to say I want to log more time against this task, I would click that little. It already knows who I am, so it brings up my username. I can change the date if I want to. So if I didn't do the work today, I did it some other day, I can change that. And I can input here the hours and with using a metric. So for example, I could put in as little as a quarter of an hour, which would be 0.25, for example, or half an hour, any kind of decimal place, 1.5. In this case, let's say it's 1. Here I can change the type of activity I was doing with this. So if I'm working with other teams, it's probably going to be like either development or support or testing. It depends really what I'm doing. And then I can put a comment. So for example, finishing up documentation. And I can just save it. So if I save it, then it will update these 3 hours into 4 hours. If I click on the 3 hours, I can see who are the people who have contributed 3 hours to doing this task and when it was done. If I move a little bit this out of the way so you can see better. So this is the view for this work package, this specific ID for this task. And I can see that it was me on this date, and I've put in some comments about what I was doing, how many hours I spent on it. And because I put in my rate, remember at the beginning where I showed you the rates for the members, it automatically calculates the cost for this project there. So that's basically one aspect of what you need to be doing on the tasks. I would recommend creating tasks for also for time logging. So for example, I'll show you one general task. So here's a task for logging time, where for time spent in team meetings, preparation and follow-up. So often we have team meetings or co-working time maybe where we want to log the time so that all the time is compensated for, even though it's not linked to a specific task. So if I click on the ID of this task, it will open. You can see it has no relationship to any one objective because it's related to the entirety of the project. And you can see in this case, I have assigned this task to another team member because I know that they still needed to log the time. So I wanted to flag it to their attention. I also included here that this task is for logging time and what it's for, and the status will remain in progress until the project is finished so that we don't continuously open new tasks for the same things. So here you see that's 8.75 hours have been logged, and it gives me the option to log the time. But if I scroll a bit further down so that you can see also other details, we've got, you can put in here a start and finish date. You can put in a progress. In this case, this is not relevant for this kind of project, but it also gives me the overall cost. So I know that 8.75 hours translates to labor cost of 218 and 75 cents euro. So for this project, that's what it accounts for. You might tell me, yes, but actually the Next Steps project is in sterling, not in euro. Unfortunately, because we're using the free version of this software, it's automatically set to one currency. It's not possible to change it. So even though it says euro for this project, we would always bill in pound. So that the rate would be in pound and the total would also be in pound. But it still gives you an overview for this. You can also change whoever is assigned to it simply by clicking on the name and clicking another person's name. For example, now it's been updated to myself. And if I want to change it back, I simply do this. One of the limitations of the software is that you cannot assign it to more than one person. I would say if it's a task that you're doing directly that, is assigned to should be assigned to one person because one person is doing it, then that's completely fine. But if the whole team is doing it, then I wouldn't use this assignment type action. I would just leave it open and with the understanding that if it's open, then everyone is doing it. Of course, make sure that you let each other know within the team that this is the case and so on. The other thing is the accountable. So this kind of software is designed for more hierarchical teams. So it could be that, for example, even though in a hierarchical team, even though a task is assigned to someone, the manager might be accountable. In this kind of flat structures where we have self-organized teams, the accountable might not be relevant, or it may be actually that the whole team is accountable. So in this case, everyone's accountable. So I left that empty. Some teams might decide that logging time is a task that the reporting officer is accountable for this. So in this case, the reporting officer for this team would be me. So I need to make sure that the other team members, all of them, log their time so that when it comes to the invoicing time, we're all up to date with our hours and we know what this project is costing. Now, if I go back a little bit, I know I'm going fast, so do let me have your questions if you have any, and I'll reply to them. So the work packages are very closely linked to the cost. So I'm going to go to costs next because I think that's the logical step to go forward. If I wanted to find out the total cost of this project up to now, I can do this by going to time and costs. I want to make sure that the filter here is not only for one task, but for all the tasks of this project. So I want to actually remove this filter, add a new filter. I want to put in project. I select the project I want, which happens to be this one. And there are other filters, so you can filter by person, filter by finished or whatever. There's a lot of different ones that you can pick. But in this case, I wanted to just have a budget check on this particular project. So once I have selected my filters, I want to go here. I need to decide whether I want this by labor or cash value. I'm going to leave it by labor for the moment, and I want to apply the filter. So if you don't hit apply, then it just won't do it. It will have still the filter from before. So I've applied the filter, basically all tasks for the convergence aggregator all the time logged for this. I'm gonna move this up here so it's not on the way. And I scroll down and it gives me a total of 11 hours, 0.75, so almost 12 hours. And this is how much it's costing right now. So this is a very good overview, especially for teams who have multiple members in the team, complex budgets to manage, and all sorts of other complicated things to take into account in order to make sure that all the budget is spent by the end of the project and that they have achieved all their objectives. So this is time and cost. You can also, if you are a user on multiple projects, for example, I have quite a few of these. So if I wanted to add a filter by, let's have a look. I think it should give me here user, and the user is me. And then I click apply. That sort of gives me all the hours I've logged on all the projects, not only on this last one that we were looking at. And to scroll down to the bottom, this gives me the total hours, and that gives me the total amount of money. But it's across all projects, so it may be useful or it may not be useful to you according to your use case, really. And basically, that's the cost reports. The other thing that you can do is you can save this. So you can save it. You can give it a name, Amy's report. I don't want to make it public. I can save that. That takes a moment. Right. So that's saved. Then I can always go back to find it. And it will be here on the left. And it's private because I chose to not make it public. So Amy report is, if I click on it, it will always bring up the same filters, and I don't have to put that in again. It just gives me it automatically. And you can do all kinds of reports. You can also, if I'm not mistaken, download the report. Let's have a look. Can I download the report? Yes, up here. I can export to XLS. So if I hit the button there, it should trigger download. This is very handy if you're invoicing for a particular project, for example, so you don't really have to produce an extra document that's already there. It does take a moment because there's quite a bit of data for the one that I submitted for. It's taking quite a while. Right, when that's finished, it triggers a download and basically downloads on my desktop. Good, so we've covered work packages to a point, and like a simple overview, and with cover time costs, but you might want to actually start new work packages for yourself. So I'm gonna go on work packages. I want to make sure that up here it's showing the name of the project that I'm really interested in, because sometimes it just refers back to other projects. So I want to hit create, and here it gives me 3 options of what I want to create. So let's say in the first instance, I want to create a milestone. Your milestone is going to be your objective. So let's say objective example 1. Here I could put in some more information about it. I don't want to assign it to anyone because it's a team objective and we're all accountable, so I just leave it at that. If if we have already decided how long this task, this objective should take. So for example, some objectives may be not more than 20 hours. You could say estimated time 20. Gives you an idea. You can also set a manual progress update there. And you can also add attachments and so on. So you would create that. I'm going to just create it so you can see it. You can see it. Objective example 1 has been created down here. Then I can close it up here. So now you can see it down there at the bottom. And what I want to do is now create a task that goes under that objective. So I want to create again. I want to create a task. This opens here. Some task of objective 1. I can decide what status it has already. So if I had already started the task before, I would put in progress. If it's a new task, just leave it as new. And here I can also just decide, oh, if I change my mind, I don't want the task anymore. I can change it to milestone or phase, then I can do that. Here is the title of that task. More info about it. Here I can put the checklist. So if it's a multi-part task, 1, blah, 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 blah. That's it. And then if the team decides that I'm doing this task, then I can automatically assign it to myself, and I'm accountable for the tasks I'm assigned to. I can also put it there. My estimated time is, I don't know, 5 hours, but this cannot, you can also leave it blank. You don't need to put it. If I have a deadline to finish this project, then I could start, I can start today, I can put a finish date in it, and basically, or I can just put a duration, 10 days, for example. I can click any attachment and I can save it. Before I save it, it's okay, I can save it first, I think. So let's say I've saved it. This is what it looks like. I can still edit it from here by changing this here, the progress, for example. If I want to update what's in this box, I just click on it and tick that. Make sure to save it by clicking the little button there. And if I want to relate it to a specific objective, then I have to create new relation. And I want to relate it to a milestone called objective example 1. I start typing, it will come up. Super. And that's basically related now. If there's any children to this task, so if there are subsequent tasks that are related to this and so on, like one is dependent on the other, then you could create those here. And here you can do either create a new child or add an existing child in that way. And you can always delete the relation by just basically removing it. So these are all examples. If you want to, for some reason, delete what I have created here, let's say I want to delete it, then I click on the 3 dots. Here are some options. I can log time, log units, I'll do all sorts. I can download as PDF and so on, but I want to delete it in this case. So this is where I want to click. And I want to delete this one. That's right. Should be able to delete it. Let's see. Maybe if I removed it. Because I deleted the milestone first. Now it doesn't recognize it. All right. Something I didn't know was a hiccup, but that's okay. So I can always repurpose it. Good. So that's that. When you have put in all the dates and everything, you could also have a look at the Gantt chart. So this gives you a kind of idea of what you've got going on in terms of tasks and the dates and so on, especially when you have proper dates. But in this case, we don't really have any for this project. If you did use it, this is very good because it also gives you an overview. So you see which tasks are basically overdue for delivery, especially if you're working with tight deadlines. This is very important. And this is all in the work packages menu. If I go back on this, then I'm back under there. I go to boards. I can have a look there at the board. On the boards is nothing to display. So this is a Kanban board. So if you don't want to use the work packages and you want to use just a more agile Kanban, then this is also a possibility, but you can create a board. I can create one just as an example. It tells you what kind of board you want. For the free one, we only have basic. I can have to give it a title. And I create it. And that gives me the list. So let's say to do. Assigned. Oh. It's your typical Kanban. And you can add a card. And here you put a task, create one. So that basically creates a task with that. If I open the ID here, you'd be able to see the ID view like we did before. It's just the same. You just hit the ID to open in a new link. If you want to get rid of it, you can just close it here. That will move. If you want, you can move it by simply moving in the columns. So that's the Kanban. And then we have meetings. You can create a meeting or you can look at past meetings. I think for this one, I close that. It's showing me an error. For this one, we have 2 past meetings. I can create a new one. This is the team meeting title we're using. We use Zoom for our call. We put the date and time of the meeting. I think it's a 2. And the time here, 2. And who was invited. And we can also add then who came later. So that's that. You can always edit it by hitting the edit button, which is right on the top here. You can set an agenda, for example, check-in, updates, checkout. It's just an example, right? And you can attach a file and you can add a comment and you can save it. So this creates basically the entry. So now you can see here who's coming, when it is, and what's on the agenda. You can only put the minutes after the agenda is closed. So once the agenda is concluded, there will be here, this will be available to edit. So if for that to happen, I have to close the agenda to begin the minutes. In this case, I don't want to do this, but basically once that's closed, So for the meeting minutes to become available, I would have to close the agenda to begin the minutes. It would copy automatically the agenda and the text. and you'll be able to see it. So I'm going to show you this by showing you a past meeting so you can see what that looks like. And this is the past meeting, for example. It shows you the minutes because the agenda had been closed. And you can also send it for review to your teammates once you're finished with it. And it keeps it quite simple and orderly, and then you can easily just go over the notes. What it doesn't do, it doesn't have a space where to record the time, to log the time where you have attended the meeting. And this is why in the work packages, we have a task for logging time for meetings, which is in the work package section right there. Okay, so that's that. I think I've covered really most of the basics here. I will take questions from people who maybe want to know more about it or would like to test it. And yeah, you can let me know what you think. If you're interested in the software for your team and you're not a Next Steps contributor, then you can let us know and we can quote you a nice price for hosting your own team on this. So thank you for now.